Welcome to the World Class Speaking podcast series. This is a place where you will learn how to present, persuade, and profit by improving your communication skills. Each episode in the series is a chapter from the book World Class Speaking in Action. And each chapter is written by a certified world class speaking coach. I'm your host, Matt Miller, and I've carefully crafted and summarized each chapter in the book. Have you ever seen a presenter perform without any body gestures or movements? Or have you seen a presentation where the speaker was continually making the exact same hand motions over and over and over again? Well, in this episode, you will learn how to avoid these mistakes and instead to display effective body language. This is episode 22, World Class Body Language, and it is authored by Hayward Suggs. And Hayward Suggs is a certified world-class speaking coach, as well as a soft skills coach and a Toastmasters Club enthusiast. Now, why is this episode so important? Well, in order to be a highly desired speaker, you have to be a strong communicator through both your words and your body language. Now, let's dive into how you can accomplish the body language side of things. When you are speaking, there's actually two people speaking. There's the verbal you, the words that are coming out of your mouth, and there's also the nonverbal you, everything else besides the words. The trick is to be sure the audience doesn't get two separate messages from the twin yous. You must establish congruence and alignment between what you say verbally, or your words, and what you say physically, or your body. Now, how important is body language? Dr. Albert Maharbian, researcher and author of the groundbreaking book Silent Messages, found that only 7% of a message is conveyed through words. That's 7% of a message is conveyed through words. Less than a tenth, 8% through other vocals, and a whopping 55% through nonverbal communication. Now, what does this mean? It means that only 7% of our message is conveyed through the actual words that we say. And the biggest chunk, over half of it, is through nonverbal communication, or what the audience sees. Now, what exactly is body language? Body language, technically known as kinesthetics, includes, but is not limited to, gestures, proxemics, or the use of space, facial expressions, vocalics, or non-word verbal utterances, positioning, movement, and manipulation of objects. That's what body language is, and that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. And I love this quote by Peter Drucker, and he said, "The most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said." First, I want to talk about hand gestures. So whenever you have hand gestures, when you're giving a speech or you're giving a presentation, you want to make sure that your hands are visible and active. Now, if you're in front of a podium, a lot of times you want to step in front of the podium so that the audience can actually see your body. They can see your hand motions. And you want to maintain your hand gestures just below the chin area, above the waist, and within the width of your shoulders. So you can think about a box from shoulders to waist and then up to the chin area. That's where you want to keep your hands. And your physical movements should amplify your words without distortion or distraction. The second thing is, after we master hand gestures, is we want to have inviting eyes. We want to maintain eye contact with the audience long enough to convey a point or a complete thought, and then we want to move on to another point with another audience member. One thing that we can do is, if we're struggling with making eye contact, we want to lock eyes with one person for a complete thought, and then we want to shift to the other side of the room, make eye contact for a complete thought, and then go to the different side of the room. One strategy that we can do is we can think of the audience as a triangle. So first start in the very front right and make eye contact with somebody in the front right of the audience. And then we can shift to the back in the middle which would be the second point on the triangle, and we can lock eye contact with somebody in that area. And then we can shift eye contact to somebody in the front on the left for the third point of the triangle. And then once we finish with eye contact at 3 points that make up that triangle, then we can invert the triangle. And now we can start with somebody in the front center and then move to the back right and then to the back left. That's a way to systematize making eye contact with one person. Eye contact is so important for connecting to your audience. And the next thing we want to do is maximize the use of our motions and our stances. Moving around too much could be a major distraction for your audience, but moving around too little can also be a distraction and can take away from us understanding your message more if you were able to actually move that aligns with the message. So if your movements don't add value, just get rid of them. A couple things is be sure to maintain an open posture. Make certain that your body line is centered and is unobstructed. And beware of crossing your feet or being unbalanced because this can cause you to look clumsy and look awkward. The next thing we can do is maximize our comportment. And what comportment is how we link our appearance, behavior, and presence all together. It is essentially how we carry ourselves. And the thing is, when we give a speech, it all starts way before we actually give the speech. Right when you walk in from the parking lot, on the site grounds, or through the building, or if you're going up to give a presentation in front of a crowd at work, that initial walk up to the stage is how we start getting viewed of our comportment. And it's very important that we carry ourselves throughout the entirety of the speech, even before, even if anybody isn't watching, because that will start to build our confidence. And then when you walk on stage, if somebody introduces you, make sure to shake their hand, extend your hand to the host with confidence, and move on the stage with purpose and poise. It's very important to smile. That whole interaction of you walking on stage, shaking the hand, smiling, is going to be how the audience views you throughout the entirety of your presentation. You want to maximize that. Another thing that's super important is using nonverbal cues to gauge audience feedback. When you're giving a speech, you want to look at your audience and see how they're feeling and how they're adjusting to what you're saying. Be sure to be aware if your audience's reaction isn't good. If they're falling asleep, if they're looking restless, if they're not paying attention, then that are signs that you need to change up your delivery and change up your message so that they start paying attention. Maybe it's time to incorporate an activity to get them involved. However, if you're making eye contact and they're smiling and they're nodding and they're leaning in and they're excited, chances are you're on the right path. And then another thing that I want to talk about is credibility. It's super important that you're the same person on the stage as you are off the stage. You should be able to link these two together. The worst thing is if you're a motivational speaker or leader on the stage, but then in person, that's not who you are. It just doesn't align, and that is going to get the audience to not think you're credible. So if you are a motivational speaker and a leader on the stage, you must give off that same energy at work. And you want to be genuine on stage. Don't be an actor. Again, alignment's the key. Another thing is your speaking attire or what you wear should match or be one level above your audience and never below your audience. If you're speaking to an executive staff, wear a suit. If you're speaking to people that dress very casually, you can wear that same attire, or you can maybe wear a polo and khakis. And lastly, something that's also very important is hand gestures as a whole. Use your hand gestures to convey concepts of distance or size or direction by pointing, or speed or weight or temperature. You can show that you're cold. You can show that something is big and vast by extending your arms in a circular direction. But use your hand gestures to support the overall message of your speech. Because again, people will pay attention to what they see more than what they hear. Something that you can do to practice is use a mirror or use a video camera and study your hand movements. One thing that I did is I took a video camera and I put it on a tripod and I video recorded myself for a 5-minute improvised speech. I did this, and then after it was complete, I took the phone and I muted it, and I just looked at my body posture and my movements while speaking to the camera. And you'd be amazed at what you pick up on. If you look at that video and you notice that you're always doing the same symmetrical double hand movements, and something that I was definitely guilty of, and definitely something that I haven't mastered yet to this day, but that was something I picked up on. So then I started taking that away. Then, after you watch it all visually and you understand where you're at, then you can flip the phone upside down and you can just listen to the audio and not the visuals at all. And then you can focus 100% on the audio, and you can listen for those filler words, those ums, ahs. Something that I was super guilty was so's. I said so many times. And I think I've gotten a little bit better at taking that word out of my speech. That after you do that, then you can watch it with both the audio and the visual, and you can see the overall presentation. And then another thing you can do is you can watch it a fourth time, and you can watch it on double speed. And a lot of times, I remember watching this video on YouTube, and they recommended watching it on double speed. And they said a lot of times girls will be twirling their hair, pick up on that, or guys will do, you'll start looking like your hands are just running 100 miles per hour in the same direction, in the same motion, but you'll pick up on different cues. And that's a very powerful example is record yourself, try to make it improvised so that you're speaking without a ton of direction. And then you can look for your hand motions and all the visual stuff. And then you can look for just audio. Then you can look at it all together. And then you can look at it at times 2 speed or even faster to catch on some more things that you may not have noticed on single speed. Then whatever you do, don't let who you are get in the way of who you could be. That's a quote from the book. Now to summarize, when you're on stage, there's actually two of you. There's the verbal you and there's the physical you. For an optimal speech, make the verbal you and the physical you align and be congruent throughout the entirety of your speech. And use the following: hand gestures to show distance, speed, direction, eye contact with a single person, lock eye contact, then move on to the next person. Motion and stance, be balanced, be poised, be confident. And then comportment, how we carry ourselves. Remember, before we give the speech is just as important as when we're giving the speech. And now that you know the importance of alignment and congruence between your words and your actions, what are 3 uses of body language that you could incorporate into your speech? Think about that. Think about what you're going to be speaking to, and then how can you use body language to support that speech? I encourage you to add these 3 kinesthetic motions into your next presentation. And that wraps up this episode. And in the next one, you will learn how to use visuals the world-class way. That's all we've got for this episode on the World Class Speaking podcast series. Until next time, remember that becoming a great communicator is so important because it leads to greater impact, influence, and income. Thank you for listening and have a great day.